Hey there, welcome back to the course. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can get the iCloud header from the iOS Notes app into our own app, okay? So in this completed app here, you'll see that I have this iCloud header, okay? Now, the first thing you might notice is that it has a border beneath it, and it's quite a bit further down than the original border here, okay? Now, the reason that is because the iCloud header view actually has a border of its own, okay? And then in a future video, I show you how to get rid of this kind of darker white here. You'll see that this white is different than the TableView white. And in the app we have completed here, this completed app, you'll see that it is the same color, okay? So I show you how to do that all in a different video. In this video, I'm simply gonna show you how to get a TableView header, and I'm gonna show you the kind of TableView header we don't want to use, okay? So I'll show you that right now. Let's go ahead and let's look in this completed app real quick so I can show you exactly what we're aiming for, okay? When I scroll up on this, or if you go into the completed iOS Notes app that's on your phone pre-installed, you'll see that the iCloud header goes up with it, okay? So we want that effect. If you do it the first way I'm going to show you, it's going to stick, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's head over to the folders controller and let's implement a method in our extension here called view for header or title for header. And let's hit return, and let's just return a string called iCloud, okay? Now, you'll get a header that says iCloud, and it will look pretty similar, a little bit different style-wise, but generally it'll look the same, and you'll think, okay, we just need to style it. Now, this is wrong because when we scroll up on these note folders, you'll see that the iCloud header sticks to the top of the navigation stack. We want it to go with it, okay? So open up the iOS Notes app on your phone, you'll see that it goes up with the TableView, okay? So this would do the same thing if we used view for header in section, okay? There's another method called view for header. We're not going to implement this one either, okay? And you could return the view we're going to create in here, but we don't want it to go in there, okay? So I'm going to show you the alternative way of doing this, and it's actually the way they did it in the iOS app that came on your phone, the Notes app. So let's go ahead and declare a view up here. Let's say file private, let view, let's say let header view is of type UIView. Let's set this to a function that returns itself, and let's just say let header view is equal to UIView. And this is going to have a frame of 0, 0, UI screen.main.bounds.width, and a height of 40, and I'm going to return the header view. And if this is confusing, I'll explain it in just a second, but just go ahead and pause it, get that in there, okay? Get these 5 lines or 4 lines in here, okay? All right, so the reason we're using a UI view is because we're going to put a label inside of this UI view so that we can give it space on top, okay? So if that doesn't make too much sense, I don't want to go off and explain about it because this is more of a course focused on core data. So we're just trying to hustle through these things to the point that we can get to core data, okay? But just know, and you probably already know, that this is why I'm doing it, right? We just want some space. So we're giving this view a header, this header a view height of 40, okay? So in the completed app, you'll see that there's a lot of space. So we can give the iCloud label a height of something like 20, okay? So I'm pretty sure that makes sense. Now, one more thing I'll explain is UI screen.main.bounds.width. You might be wondering, okay, why don't we use view.frame.width? And the reason is we don't have access to view.frame.width inside of something outside of our view.did load, right? Now you might say, okay, we can just mark it as lazy and use view.frame.width, and you can if you want. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use UI screen.main.bounds.width because it works, and we will continue, okay? So I'm going to say let label is equal to UI label, and this UI label is going to also have a frame, but it's going to be a bit different, okay? So we want to inset a bit, okay? Now, the view for header and section, by default, it insets it the amount our cells are inset, but with a header, it doesn't do that, okay? A header view, a table view, header view. So we're going to say 15, and then we're going to say 20, and we'll say for why we want 15. The width, we only need about 100 because we just need enough space for the iCloud to fit. And then the height, we'll say it's half of the header view, so 20, so we can get that extra space between folders and iCloud. Okay, next thing we'll do is we'll say label.text is iCloud. We'll say label.font is equal to UI font.system font of size 13 with a font weight of .light because it's a little bit thinner. And then we'll say label.text color is equal to .dark gray. And then let's add it to the header view, and then we will compile our application and take a look. So we'll say header view dot add subview, and I'll say label, okay? So go ahead and pause it, get this code in here. And I want to make it clear that when I get to the core data stuff, that's when I'm going to really slow down and explain things a lot more. So I don't want you thinking that I'm just going to rush through core data. I'm actually going to explain it a lot more in depth. The reason I'm not explaining these things as in depth is because they're simpler concepts that most of you probably already understand if you're here trying to learn core data. Okay. So you'll see in our app now, we don't have this header view. Now the reason we don't is because we haven't set it yet. So let's go into our setup TableView function and say TableView.headerView, table header view, and it says it returns an accessory view that is displayed above the table is equal to header view, okay? That's gonna give us an official TableView header view. You'll see it's called table header view. So this isn't some janky method because we're not using these methods. It's actually a solid way of doing things, and it's how they did it in the Notes app, okay? You'll see we now have that header. Now you see we don't have the border, and we still have that top border, okay? So we'll get rid of the top border later on, but what I'll show you in the rest of this video is how we can basically add a border to the bottom with layers, okay? So what we're gonna do is we are going to write a little method in which I can show you how we can add a border to whatever side we want, okay? So let's go ahead and let's open up this side panel. Let's go to our Notes iOS app folder and create a new file, and I'm just gonna call this extension, okay? And this could be in its own video, but I thought I might squeeze it in here anyway. All right, and in extension.swift, let's import UIKit, and let's write an extension of UIView, okay? In UIView here, we need to write an enumeration. So we'll say enum view side, and the cases are gonna be case left, right, bottom, and top, okay? Now, what we're doing here is we're writing a method in which we can just add a border to whatever side we want, because by default, it's kind of hard to add a border without giving it on all sides, okay? So let's go ahead and let's say func add border, and we'll say to side, and then this is going to be of type view side, okay? Because like that enum, right? So it's going to take in either left, right, bottom, or top. Then we're going to say with color is CG color, and then we'll say and thickness, and that will be thickness CG flow, okay? So if you're not familiar with this kind of naming of functions, of parameters, basically what I'm doing is when we use this method, we're gonna have to provide the names, right? And that's gonna be to side and with color and thickness. But then when we wanna use these inside of this function, we're gonna use side, color, and thickness, okay? So it's a lot easier to comprehend as you're reading the code, okay? So if that doesn't make sense, just keep coding, and as you use this kind of syntax later on, you'll come to realize how it works if you don't already. So we'll say let border is equal to CA layer, because we're not adding it to all sides, we're adding it to one side, so we have to use a layer. We'll say border.background color is equal to color, and then we're gonna write a switch to add it to whatever side we want, right? So we'll say switch, and we'll say side. So based on the side, if it's dot left, we will basically give it a border.frame of CG rect, and this will have this constructor here, and we'll say frame.min x, frame.min y, and then we'll say thickness and frame.height, okay? So what that's gonna do is it's just gonna give it to the width, all right? So the left side. So let's go ahead and copy this entire case, and we'll paste it a few times. So we'll say paste, paste, paste. This is going to be right. This is going to be bottom, and this is going to be top. So for top, we'll start with right because that's the next one. For this one, we will say frame.maxx for x, and then for frame y, we'll say min y still. And then for width, we'll do thickness, and for height, we will do frame.height, okay? So we're basically just putting it to the max x, so the right, okay? And then here we're doing it to the min x, so all the way to the left, and min y, so all the way to the bottom. Okay, so there we go. Let's go to the bottom one now, and we'll say frame.min x, frame.min y, and then for width, we'll say frame.width, And then for height, we will say thickness. And this is kind of an optional kind of method that you have to write, right? So like this isn't really going to make a lot of sense to most of you. And if it does, it's going to take a little bit of thinking, right? So I wouldn't worry if this doesn't make sense. You don't really need to understand how this works because this isn't really the focus of the course. Okay, so this top one is actually, I kind of mix these up. So we want this one, this border.frame to be this one. So paste it right here. And then for this top one, what we'll do, or this bottom one, what we'll do is we will say max Y on this one, okay? So now when we use this method, we can add a border to each side, okay? All right. And we don't need a default since we've provided every type of side, okay? So there's no way it can even hit the default case at this point. And now we'll just say layer.add sublayer, and we'll say border, okay? So really, this probably doesn't make sense. The syntax is really kind of confusing, but basically we're making it so we can add a border with this certain background color onto the side of the view we're adding it on, okay? So let's go ahead and use it and then end this video. And then if you still don't understand it, feel free to leave a question in Q&A and I'll answer it and explain it more. And if you just don't care, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't really need to know that, okay? That's just an extra I wanted to add in here. I wasn't even gonna do that. And then halfway through the recording this video, I thought, I might as well add that function just because I know some people might like it, okay? All right, so now what we can do is we can go into our label and we can now say, since it's an extension of UIView and a label is a subclass of UIView, we can say label.addBorder to view side, we'll say .bottom with color, UI color.light gray, with alpha component, let's say half, and then that's a CG color, so we just have to say .cg color, okay? And then thickness 0.3, okay? So now when we compile our app, we're gonna see that little border on the bottom of our label, and now we will have two borders instead of just one on the top, okay? All right, you'll see that, but it doesn't really look great because we added it to the label. So what we need to do is we need to add it to the header view. Let's say header view.addBorder, because this will extend across the entire view, because this thing is a width of UI screen.main.bounds.width, and this one's only 100. So by adding it to the header view, it's going to extend across the entire table view. Okay, so it's really subtle, but it's very similar to the line you see in the table view. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and hop into the very next section. I'll see you in just a second.